Deceiving others is a way that people get what they want. Does human deception erase the worth of human accomplishment? Even though the deception used by Rebekah and Jacob disrupted their family, God still worked through their situation to accomplish the planned and promised divine redemption of fallen humanity. It's important to note that deception seemed to be a family trait, particularly when it was believed that one's life or livelihood was at stake. Abraham lied when he was asked about Sarah being his wife. Isaac did the same when the men of Gerar inquired about Rebekah when they relocated during a famine. In this lesson, we see that Jacob and Rebekah worked together to deceive Isaac and cheat Esau. Later in Genesis, Jacob will be deceived by his uncle. And that brings us to our key verse for today, which reads, "But he did not recognize Jacob, because Jacob's hands felt hairy just like Esau's. So Isaac prepared to bless Jacob." Genesis chapter 27, verse 23. In verses 1 through 4, Isaac, supposing that his death is near, gives Esau instructions to prepare a meal so that he can pronounce his blessing over him. Rebekah overhears this conversation. Perhaps remembering the oracle predicting that Jacob would be the greater twin, she devises a scheme to trick Isaac into blessing Jacob. Like Abraham and Sarah before her, Rebekah decides to help God, taking advantage of Isaac's blindness and creating a plan that manipulates his other senses: taste, smell, and touch. Jacob executes his mother's plan. As instructed, he uses goatskins to appear hairy like Esau. He wears Esau's clothes that Rebekah gave him. He presented the meal to Isaac that she prepared. While she orchestrated this entire process, Jacob had the opportunity to choose righteousness and failed. When asked, "Who are you, my son?" he lied. "I am Esau, your firstborn." It is then evident that he had taken full ownership of the scheme. At multiple points, there are glimpses that Isaac was suspicious of Jacob and aware he could be deceived. However, similar to other experiences, his own, Abraham's, and even Rebekah's, he trusts himself and his own senses instead of seeking God. He uses logic, inquiring about the speed in which Jacob returned from hunting. He uses touch, requesting to feel Jacob to see if his arms were hairy. He uses hearing, acknowledging that the voice sounded like Jacob's and not Esau. And still suspicious, he asks again if Jacob was really Esau, and Jacob lied for the third time. In a final act of confirmation, he uses smell, asking Jacob to come near to be kissed, as was typical in a blessing. As Isaac kisses him, he smells Esau's scent on the clothing. Led by his senses, Isaac blesses Jacob. Rebekah and Jacob's scheme is successful, but would come at a price. Isaac ironically begins his blessing over Jacob by focusing on a trait that belonged to Esau, the smell of a field. He asks God to make him prosperous, grant him dominion over other nations, and for favor and protection. The mercy of God would bring these things to pass, despite Jacob's guilt. So here's our lesson. Social media, taxes, work projects, simple conversations. There are daily opportunities to lie and deceive. It is imperative that we realize that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Recognizing this can keep us humble and alert. Seeking God can safeguard us from the temptation to lie or deceive. Can we trust that what God has provided now is enough, and that He has more abundant in store for us? Ultimately, we must seek God, who responded to David with, "For the oppression of the poor, for the sighing of the needy, now will I arise, saith the Lord. I will set him in safety from him that puffeth at him." Psalm 12, verse 5. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to iLights. Heavenly Father, fill our hearts with what we truly desire, for who we truly seek is you.